hot D. I think this is the best show that I've seen this year. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating by saying that. And it's not by any means perfect, but it is really hitting all the spots for me. And when you compare it with any other stuff that's happening or that has happened this year, I just don't feel like there's any comparison. What about you?
Oh yeah. I can't believe how good this show is. And we got another time jump, 6 years. And that just means that it's so fucking like there's so much stuff in it to it kind of feels like every episode it's like, okay, where are these characters at now? And then things just get even more wild as the show goes on. And yeah, I loved it. This was actually like prop I feel like every episode like one ups the one before it, but like I feel like this was my favorite episode so far. I literally laughed out loud and I cried. I had tears in my eyes at one point. So it made me feel lots of things, and that is what I want from my content. I like was fully entranced. So wow, I the D is hot as always.
So I'm curious though. So what was the moment where you laughed out loud?
It was actually shortly after I cried. So I had some tears when Viserys is just looking around at his whole family, being happy, and I was just like, oh shit, this guy's about to die. He's about to die, but like we've been knowing that like I thought he was gonna die a few episodes back, so that's fine. And then one of the fucking kids did something.
Oh,
Felt
was it
also
Aegon? Yeah, because Aegon was like, "Oh yeah, I am the lord of the I don't know, lord of the crotch or whatever." But he's just a piece of shit,
yeah, yeah.
basically.
That little interaction. And then yeah, also freaking Damon, he makes me feel all sorts of ways. So when, the kids had their little kerfuffle as they always do, and he stepped in and just immediately just shut everything down. It's like, oh my god, my man. But that did make me chuckle a little bit too, because just like in one movement, he just shut everything down. He was like, nope, go to your rooms, goodbye. So lots happened. I mean, we're getting out of ourselves. This is the end of the episode. But yeah, it was really, really great. Everything in this episode was, I think, integral. Like it sets up things and it pays off things from the past as well. So I loved it. And we got new actors for the kids, which I didn't expect so soon. But I mean, that's because I didn't watch the preview for this week. So I was completely surprised, which I think I enjoyed. I think I'm not going to watch the previews from now on because I really enjoyed just going in blind.
Well, sometimes the previews actually mislead you a little bit.
Mm.
So it probably is a good idea to stay away from them. But yeah, so just to kind of go back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because this episode is called Lord of the Tides. So I mean, it actually starts off where Vaymond, who is the brother of Corlys, Corlys Valerian, unfortunately went down to the Stepstones, got back involved in that war, and got really hurt, got sliced across the neck apparently, fell into the sea for a time, and now he's basically septic, blood poisoning, whatever you want to call it. And his brother Vayman comes to Driftmark and says, "Look, I'm going to be the one that takes over." He says that to Rhaenys, and Rhaenys basically, I guess Corlys pretty much left right after Laenor died. Did you get that impression?
Yeah, yeah, he's been gone for a while.
Yeah, so it's been 6 years. They say that at the beginning of the episode. So right after Laenor died, supposedly, after he supposedly died, he left for the Stepstones to get back involved in that war. So Rhaenys has had her granddaughter Bela there, and she's basically been teaching her how to be the Lady of Driftmark. But Vayman, he wants to be the Lord of Driftmark. So that's where we start, and he's going to take his case to King's Landing so that he can get some so-called justice from the High Towers, basically, because Viserys is pretty much, you know, out to lunch now. Because he's so sick, all the time. How did you feel about anything that happened with Viserys? Because this basically was even though it's called Lord of the Tides, Viserys, this was his episode, basically, his swan song. How'd you
Oh, for
feel
sure.
about all that?
Oh my god. He's shown in this episode I just the progression, or I guess the regression, of how awful he looks. It's crazy how well both like the artist who got his body like that, but also just the actor. He did so fucking well. They did a really good job with his character. He got everything wrapped up. Too bad at at the very end he kind of messed everything up because he thought he was talking to someone else. But anyway, I think that this is a really, really good send off for him. Although he's on his deathbed, he still stood up for his family and said, no, this is how we're going to do it. And he got his whole family together, and they were all happy, and they were a nice little family for a night. So I think that this was a really great episode to send him off.
you know, Even though I had a lot of love for this episode, I had a lot of problems with it too. But
Ooh.
I actually wondered if some of this was set up specifically by the writers, because I feel like Rhaenyra did not prepare her children very well for the stuff that's happening right now. Um, Obviously, Rhaenyra didn't do herself any favors by having three bastards, and yes, they're bastards. Sorry,
Surprise.
but but it's not to be spoken, and we saw the reason why in this episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was the truth, unfortunately. Yeah, she didn't do herself any favors by having three kids with Harwin Strong, and not preparing these kids to become the Lord of Driftmark, or the Lord of basically the heir behind her, because she's the heir, but Jacaerys, her son, her firstborn son, uh, with Harwin Strong, he's the person that's behind her. So, I don't know. It just feels like Rainier really screwed herself in this. I'm still Team Black, but she didn't do herself any favors. What did you think about that?
I don't know. I think that her kids are so much more mature than Allison's kids that I'm like, yeah, that she didn't prepare them as much as she could have, but they're still so much more prepared and mature than Allison's kids, who are just not the greatest people, not the people that you want to rule. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for the kids, of course, but I think they'll be fine. Their parents have been preparing them to, hate the opposite side. That's for sure, their whole lives.
Right. No, and I think that's the only thing that they're prepared for.
Yeah, yeah.
The High Tower kids, or the Targaryens, the ones with the actual that are actually legit. Basically, at least a couple of them, Aegon and Aemon, they've been preparing to fight. Um, you know, Alicent has been trying to prepare Aegon to be the king. However, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that's because she wasn't a great parent, unfortunately. Rhaenyra is a better parent, but as far as for the conflict that's coming, I feel like Alicent and her crew, the Greens, basically, I think they prepared better for war,
Yeah.
and for maybe for ruling, than Jason Luke. were. Just my opinion. But I also feel like Rhaenyra, she, when we last saw her, she already knew that her dad had lost an arm, right? Or it had a half arm basically, a half amputated arm
Mhm.
on the left side. So she knew how sick he was. But yet she hadn't come back to the Red Keep to, at least check on him.
He's
Dragonstone
been
is
sick
not
for
that
so
far.
long.
Yeah, Dragonstone is not that far away. I don't have any sympathy for you coming back after 6 years and being upset that the decorations are different. Okay. Where the fuck have you been? Why haven't you visited your sick father all this time? Yes, I know that, the marriage between Rhaenyra and Daemon was not approved by the king. But still, you're the heir. At some point, you're supposed to be taking over, and you have a sick father. He may die at any moment. Why, in that 6 years, haven't you done anything to, try to make things better between you and your father? And then why hasn't she said anything to Rhaenys in that time about what actually happened with Laenor? It's like it all came this episode, the fact that she didn't have the relationship with her father in that 6 year time period, the fact that she didn't have any contact with Rhaenys during that 6 year time period. Um, you know, so yeah, I just have issues with that. Um, I don't know. What do you think?
That's valid. I don't know. I think that just she's probably been avoiding everyone and just been like, okay, no, let's let the storm calm a little bit before I go back. I do want to address some of the comments because Aemond feels ready for violence and for a fight. I don't think he's ready for I guess he's ready for war, but not for the politics. I think that from this episode he's just likes to fight is what I got from it. How strong are your feelings about that? So many strong jokes that I love.
Yes, yes, I loved. Look, I'll say probably Eamon is maybe my second favorite character,
Oh,
behind. Well, maybe I should say third now because Viserys. Viserys may have moved up to my first.
yeah.
Viserys, Damon, and then I'll say Aemon. Because look, I don't mind that he's still salty about his eye. I mean, all those kids got into that fight together, and he's the only one that lost a piece, a piece of himself. So if he's still upset about it, I do not mind at all. But yeah, there is a definite Damon and Aemon connection. So
Oh yeah.
I
When they
definitely
looked at
feel
each
that.
other,
Hmm.
I that's the exact vibe that I got. Yeah.
Oh, what's Nikki saying? If you ever had to care for a dying family member, this episode really hits those feels. That's true.
Yeah, that's the vibe that I got too. Like I was emotional the whole episode just because it was a really like real portrayal and it felt like yeah, although we're in this other world, like yeah, these are the emotions that these characters would be feeling. So they did it really well, but that made me really sad.
Right, but who is actually doing the caretaking here? In those 6 years since
Yeah.
last time, it's been Alicent. And I actually gained a lot of sympathy for her here, because even though she has these grudges basically against Rhaenyra, and they've lost their friendship. She actually wasn't a bad wife to Viserys. She actually took a lead role in trying to take care of him. Yes, he might have been snowed a lot by the milk of the poppy, but he needed that shit. He needed it because he
He
was in
did.
pain. It would have been more cruel for them to withhold it. So it was convenient that he was snowed, but they weren't keeping him snowed, on purpose. Yes, when he took that mask off, I was like, God damn it, everybody's eating.
I know. That was whew. Yeah. I actually usually like have a drink or like a tea or like a meal or something while I watch TV. But I have learned from experience with House of the Dragon that like every time that I take a sip of my tea or take a bite of something, it's always going to be something gross. It's happened a few times I've stopped. You
Yeah,
cannot.
we've had that conversation, I remember.
Yeah, yeah, it was so so yeah, no, now I'm just prepared to be expect the unexpected, I think. And it was I mean, it was a nice sentiment, like him being himself with his family with no mask to hide behind. It was creepy but nice. So,
True. And Brian Stone is asking, who do you think he was talking to at the very end? Obviously, he was talking to Emma.
yeah, yeah.
Or you mean like before he was passing? Before he was passing, he thought he was talking to Rhaenyra, but
Yeah, that
you
fucks
know,
everything up.
yeah. And I got to, even though I didn't love the way that they were trying to use the prophecy, you know, the prince who's promised. Um, I was okay with the way that they did this because I do think that in those moments between, especially between a caregiver and somebody that they're taking care of, I think that sometimes those for many reasons. So the fact that it's going to be like motivation for Alicent to do the things that she's going to do. I buy that. I know a lot of fans are not liking it, um, because it makes Alicent a little bit more sympathetic. But I was okay with it. How do you feel about it?
It just makes me angry because I'm like, "Ugh, of course they would do this." Like, I do like that they set this up in the first episode. I know that, like, in the first episode, people are like, "Why are you bringing this up?" But it comes back, and yeah, just a misunderstanding, and that's why all this shit's gonna go down. But of course, like while they were having this happy dinner, I was like, "Oh my god, this is not gonna last for very long. How are they gonna fuck this all up?" And this is how that happened. But yeah, the when he says like "Hello, my love" or whatever, I think that was him greeting death and greeting his past wife.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously there was a lot of care between Viserys and Alicent, but he never got over Emma. And I
Yeah.
I think that was clear for her, as well. I mean, I think she kind of just accepted it as her lot in life to be with this man who was still in love with his dead wife, unfortunately. So yeah, I did gain a lot of sympathy for Alicent in this.
Yeah.
We skipped over something. We skipped over a really crazy moment, and I wanted to hear your thoughts about it. Because this whole thing
What's that?
started, at least this whole episode started, because Vaemon wanted to bring his claim to be the Lord of Driftmark instead of Jacaerys
Hmm.
to King's Landing to be judged, basically. He thought he was going to have it judged by the Hand, who is Otto, and they basically make a deal before they get into the throne room. It says, hey, yeah, if you guys accept this claim and let me be the heir or let me be the Lord of Driftmark, then I will basically be your servant. Your servant of the seas. I'll rule the seas, and our forces will be there for you. But that's not what ends up happening. Uh,
Hmm.
Viserys actually makes that Green Mile walk
Oh
to
my
the Iron
goodness.
Throne, and it was so powerful.
It sure
Um,
was.
Great, actually, probably the greatest moment of the episode, because they didn't pull away. Most of the time in these shows and movies, they pull away from moments like that because they're uncomfortable. But they let us go
They
along
showed
with
it
him
all.
with each step and stutter that he had, and there was a couple times where he needed help. He bent over at one point and dropped the crown from his head. And he had already shooed away the king's guard, but then the next time that he needed help, it was Damon that was helping him. and that was
Oh,
so great.
that was a really good I loved that moment where he was like, "Okay, I will accept your help." And fucking Daddy Damon keeps on getting to my heartstrings. Oh my god, I'm in love with this man.
Yeah, but he killed his wife. He killed his first wife. Just don't forget
You
that.
know, you win some, you lose some.
But yeah, apparently, the him dropping the crown from his head was an accident. It wasn't planned in the script, and Matt Smith putting the crown back on Patty Considine's head was not planned either.
Oh, that's
So
so
that was just
cool.
so perfect that
Yeah,
happened.
that's such a
So
good moment.
loved it. That's just great acting and directing and just great storytelling that they left that stuff in there.
For sure.
But yeah, so Bayman has to make his claim to the king now. And it doesn't go the way that he thought it was going to go. And he just loses his mind and eventually loses his head. Uh,
Not his tongue.
so what did you think about Vaymond, in this moment after the king showed up?
Oh my, well, the whole walk, it was so good that they left it so long because you got to see everyone's facial expressions and like all the emotions that they're going through. And Allison and him, they're just like shitting their pants. They're like, "Oh my God, what is this man doing? How are we like this is not the plan." So I think at this point, I think honestly he was so mad and he was just like, "Fuck this shit. Fuck you all. You're fucking bastards." Screams it out. And I mean, you people who say that have been threatened so much before. I think he knew it wasn't going to end well, but I don't think he knew how swiftly that was going to be. That was also a really cool moment. So many cool moments this episode. Yeah, what do you think was going on in his head?
you know, this is a Game of Thrones that we're talking about here. Just because you are being truthful does not make that mean that you're a good player of the Game of Thrones. Okay.
Mm,
We've had people that have had truth on their side and they lose. Like we saw that with Ned and Got. He was the most probably one of the most honorable characters that we have seen in this world. And he ended up getting beheaded because he tried to tell the truth. So, basically, Vayman was like more of a dickish version of Ned. That's the way I
yeah,
looked at
true.
it.
You are not
uh,
wrong.
yeah, I mean, look, after you call the heir to the throne a whore, I mean, that's like it. That's the last straw.
I
You're
forgot
done.
about that. Oh my God.
You are done, sir.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So yeah, I we could definitely talk about this episode like forever.
Oh, for
But
sure.
any final thoughts? Anything that you're really anticipating? I know you said you didn't see the preview for next week. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to watch the preview or not. I think that for now I'm going to stay away because it was such a great experience just like not knowing what was going to happen this episode, and it freaking blew my mind. So I'm so happy. This is a really, I hate to just like repeat every week, but this was a really well done episode, and it just like made my heart race and feel so many emotions. So it was so well done. And now we're going to see shit hit the fan because the king's gone. So I guess we'll see what happens. This is kind of what we've been like leading up to. This is like the politics and the scheming before, like preparing for this to happen. And now the thing has happened. So I am very excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah, I am as well. Very interesting that this episode had no dragons in it.
Yeah.
So all of the talking in rooms and stuff like that, that was still interesting as fuck.